Well, I hope you had a good New Year because the Vikings sure didn't, and that was probably the most embarrassing game of the year. I mean, it was embarrassing losing to the Cowboys, sure. It was embarrassing losing to the Eagles, yes. The Lions, fine, but dude, to the Packers, are you kidding me? In Lambeau, I know it's not the best conditions. I know it's hard playing on the road, but dude, we got embarrassed, right? I mean that. There's no better way to say it. It hurt. It hurt bad.
Yeah, we were embarrassed on this past week, and it was an ugly sight for all Vikings fans. Just they they handled us. There was no question about it, and it being the Packers, I think just that's the cherry on top. That really stings.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all don't like the Packers, and yeah, so when we lose to them, that definitely hurts. But yeah, they couldn't do anything wrong that game, and the Vikings just couldn't do anything against them. So yeah, they beat us in every way, shape, and form. So we'll get into that right now.
Yep. And we've obviously talked a lot in the last podcast about Alexander, and we said that Jefferson was going to make him look like a fool, but you know what? You got to hand it to him, and they just completely shut down Jefferson. It wasn't obviously just Alexander, but his teammates backed him up, and I don't
Well,
know.
it was mostly Alexander, but yeah, he was on Jefferson like that entire game, and I was honestly surprised to see that he did get some targets, but he only had one catch. Like KJ Osborne and Hawkinson basically were the only people that could get a reception that game for the Vikings, and but yeah, the Jefferson is really good though, and he was playing against a really good defensive back in Jair Alexander, but there were some things I didn't like to see. Like I didn't like to see there was one pass play that Jair Alexander broke up, and he started like doing the gritty after to kind of like troll Jefferson, and it's like, dude, come on, man, like that guy's like gonna be the MVP of the league, whether you shut him down this game or not. Like, you should have a little more respect than that,
Yeah.
but.
I'll be
Like you're
honest, as
nobody.
soon as he
Like,
did that gritty in his face,
yeah,
that was first quarter. That was
yeah,
early. I was like,
yeah,
oh man, he just
yeah,
opened up Michael Jordan, JJ, MJ. I
yeah.
was like, he is going to just shut him down. But Kirk didn't throw him the ball right away after that. I was like, just throw him the ball. Make him
Uh,
embarrass Alexander after Alexander just embarrassed him, right?
yeah. I mean,
How could you?
it got so bad, at one point that Kirk was just like throwing the ball up there, just there was a couple interceptions because like JJ fell down on one, but
Yeah,
then there were some that were just like Kirk was just throwing the ball up there. He had one he was throwing to Thielen, and he just aired it up there, and Thielen was like double covered, and he threw terrible interception on like the first play of a drive. But yeah,
right.
they were able to take care of our receivers. They
Alex, would you say that JJ's not going to be able to break Kelvin Johnson's record now, or I mean, is JJ 2K out of the question? And what do you see from him versus Alexander?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the record itself, I think it's going to be a lot tougher next week. Just the way things are shaping up. Like, yeah, there's been talks from KOC that the starters are going to be playing, but if he goes out and puts up 200 yards before the game's over, odds are we're probably in a position to win that game. Probably not going to see him finish that game out. So I just, I think it's going to be really hard for him to do it just with the circumstances and with the playoffs coming around the corner. But as far as the game itself, yeah, Jair shut him down. There's no denying it. He won this battle. Jefferson won the first game. Uh, Now I'm just hoping we get to see a Vikings Packers playoff matchup and Jefferson gets some revenge.
That would be nice
yeah.
because that'd be a home game too, obviously.
Hmm.
So
But yeah,
we'll
but
take
going
that.
back to that, you said if JJ had 200 yards, we probably would have been winning that game. I don't know, man, because like we had more yards than the Packers this game, and we did terrible. We had like a couple of scores in like garbage time, but I mean, realistically, we only scored 3 points on them. So
Right, and really that garbage time seemed to rack up our yardage. I mean,
yeah,
it's in general, we were clearly outplayed and they were winning the battle everywhere on the field. And really, it was a special teams battle too. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, what? First of all, first off, we started out with blocking a punt, another one, same guy, rookie Megan, just amazing. Metellus, is that how you pronounce his name? I think it's Josh Metellus, or I'm not exactly sure, but man, blocking another punt and then we can't score from the 1 yard line. It's just like the momentum was just way up and then just shot down. It didn't matter what you did. The Packers found a way to shut down the momentum, and they did it on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Right.
And then also on special teams too. I mean, they had a kick return for a touchdown. So they beat us. They beat us all over the field, man.
Yeah, and there was also a little bit of beating ourselves with the man who we were praising so heavily last week, Mr. Greg Joseph. Yep. Definitely, he was struggling this week.
You were praising, Alex. You had a T-shirt.
I was praising
you
too.
were the one praising.
Alex had the shirt out. The thank Greg.
Maybe I jinxed it. Maybe we have to. We have to shun
Greg,
him.
Going 1 for 3 on field goals is pretty bad. He I don't know, man. Yeah, he couldn't make kicks, man. Like our offensive line couldn't block. Our defense couldn't stop anything. It was bad, man. All over the place.
Josh, is your mic connected to the thing right now? Can you tap it?
It is going through my AirPods.
Okay. So you sound.
When I switched over.
God,
oh my God.
I almost feel like we have to start over. That's such a big difference.
We're not starting over. I can't start over.
We got to turn it into a bit.
Yeah. I'll just say like, or we just had some tech. My mic wasn't working, and they just told me now. So you guys get my AirPod audio for the first half of this. All right, continuing on. You guys could have told me right when we started.
I'm just used to you sounding like crap, so I was like, it's probably just his, nasally voice.
No. Well, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold anyway, so.
All right, back to the game. The special teams, all right, we talked about it. Yes, Greg Joseph struggled, but you know what? Even if he makes those 2 field goals,
it doesn't matter.
It's
if he makes
24-9 at that point. I think if you counted both of those, at one point it would have been 24-9 when he missed that other one. It's like it wouldn't have mattered, but it could have, because it's a momentum type game, right? It's clearly obvious, and Kirk Cousins just seemed like he could not get the momentum going. What was he? 18 for 31 with 205 yards. He was sacked twice, so not a terrible amount of sacks, which is good.
Yeah, but he also, he had people in his face a lot too. Like the offensive line, just couldn't block. There were so many people that just came through completely untouched. There was also a moment where literally it looked like KOC and Kirk Cousins were like they were kind of smirking on the sideline talking, and Kirk Cousins was motioning he was coming right up the middle. You could see him kind of talking, and it was right after he had someone right in his face, coming right up the middle untouched. So, and I think he actually threw a pick. That was when he threw that pick to when he was throwing at Thielen. I think it was that, might have been on that one. Can't remember. There was a lot of bad things that happened, so I can't
And it's hard to put a lot of that on Kirk. I think he deserves some of the blame. Would you agree, Alex? But at the same time, not to kind of skip ahead, but talking about the O-line as well, like Josh just mentioned, obviously Bradbury was out. Schlottman got injured. He's out for the year now, I assume. It sounds like.
I'm not putting I'm not putting any blame on Kirk though, because if you look at the starters, right? Not like Jalen Naylor who came in at the end. What?
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Jalen Naylor came in at the end and he had he had 89 yards, 3 receptions and a touchdown in garbage time. Doesn't matter. Kirk Cousins had the 2 biggest plays of the day just on his feet.
Yeah.
Lamar Cousins made another appearance this week. It's always good to see him using the legs and looking confident moving around. But yeah, the passing attack just I don't know. I wouldn't say it was totally Kirk's fault. Like you guys were saying, the O-line was letting up a ton of pressure. Having Schlottman go down really hurt us. There was those false start penalties that kept happening and just was killing our momentum. And it was just it felt like every single thing that could go wrong was going wrong in this game. So I think that's totally unfair to put it all on Kirk.
Yeah. Well, and, having your third string center out there who's never played center in an NFL game, I know that that's tough, but at the same time, that's your job. You've been practicing. He's been there the whole time. A little bit of the blame has to go on Reed as well. Or simplify the snap count, right? There was clearly issues. Everyone from the broadcast to the fans, everybody could see the issues with center. Would you agree that they have to do something different, or did they just continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different results?
Well, and I think getting another week of practice and getting comfortable with him in this new setup, I think that's going to help a ton because I mean, an NFL offense is extremely complicated and can be really difficult. So I think just a little extra time could help a ton, and maybe that's all it takes is 1 week to let him get settled. But yeah, you can't be having those kind of plays happen at the NFL level.
Yeah, I don't they practice already? I mean, I know he doesn't take snaps from him the entire time, but Bradbury's been out for what, like 3, 4 weeks? He's been out since the Colts game, so you would think that all right, he knows he's that second string guy already. He knows if anything happens to Schotman, then he's got to go in. You got to be prepared for that. You're an NFL player, you know, act like it. That's my thought on it. You got to step up. I don't know. It was very frustrating to watch. Would you? What about you, Josh? Are you in the
I
same
mean,
boat as Alex or me?
well, I don't know. I don't know what boat either one of you were in. I wasn't really. I wasn't following, I guess.
Alex
But
is saying maybe he needs some time to get used to this and maybe he'll figure it out. I'm saying he should have had this figured out already. This is insane.
yeah, I mean, he's a third string NFL lineman. Like he should be. You know, is he like their third string like center? Is that what he
Yeah.
does, or does he play like tackle or something usually?
I think he's a guard, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But
yeah, but you got to know
but
those
he knows
positions.
he's
You got to
still his third
practice.
string
Yeah.
center.
So it's, I don't know. I just, that there was a lot of embarrassing things going on in that game. So like, even just pointing at that one thing, it doesn't even matter. I mean, there were so many, like, we couldn't pass the ball. Our defense just couldn't stop anything. Like, yeah, they scored a special teams touchdown, but you know, they basically did whatever they wanted on offense. You know, they ran the ball all over us, and they actually weirdly did. I don't even think they only got like 315 yards of offense. So I don't. At least they didn't break 400, but
Well, and
they were very efficient though with those 315 yards.
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that lower number comes from the field position battle and letting up the big kick return touchdown and like that part. So their offense didn't have to carry as much of the load and do as much.
Yeah.
Right. They weren't going from our 10-yard line. They're going from the 50-yard line to score because we're
Right.
turning it over so often. And then also, once it got late in the game, it was clear they were just trying to run the clock down. They were obviously continuing to try to score, but really they were just trying to kill as much time as humanly possible and get that game over with a big win. What about our run game? Yes.
Oh,
No?
our run game was terrible. So I said
Other
their
than
run game
Kirk.
was really good.
Other than
Yeah.
Kirk.
Other than Kirk, who had those
Right.
awesome runs. No, our run game was absolutely garbage. Their run game. Aaron Jones had a great game. He had like over 100 yards rushing. I think AJ Dillon scored their touchdown, and he had a pretty good game too. But yeah, as far as like Dalvin Cook had nine carries for 27 yards. You're averaging 3 yards carry. I mean, we talked on our last podcast about how we thought Dalvin Cook was gonna, have a big game and everything, and we're like, oh, he's Dalvin Cook. He's a great running back. Of course, he's gonna do well. But I mean, Kirk Cousins had 37 yards on 3 rushes. So
Yeah.
If Kirk Cousins is out rushing you, Dalvin, you gotta, I don't know, man. But that also has to do with the offensive line too. So
Right. But we've been talking about it the past couple weeks. His yards per attempt has just been terrible this season. He gets,
abysmal.
yeah, great word.
Let's use big
He-
words for our audience. I mean,
There's dictionary.
they're smart, dude.
Dark there, Josh.
Anyway, another week seeing him at 3 yards per carry. That's just for a guy that's making $10 million a year. That's just not acceptable. And there's just so many good running backs in the league that are extremely serviceable and can get that job done. That it's like, it starts to raise the question: do we start to look to move on from Cook? I mean, Alexander Madison probably is going to cost half of what Cook's salary is, and that game he ran for more yards than Cook. And I'm not saying he's a better running back or anything.
On less
Obviously,
carries too, though. But yeah.
right. And obviously, Cook is an extremely talented running back. There's no doubt about it. But maybe something to think about going forward.
I've always put Cook in like that top tier running back. Like I was always like, whether we're talking about just like in the NFL, like you're talking about like elite top tier running backs, or even like in fantasy, right? Like your tier 1 running backs is, I mean,
Clearly an
like,
RB1.
yeah, is he not up there anymore? Like, has he dropped down?
Yeah, I feel like we're slowly starting to see him, you know, climb down that leaderboard. Other younger guys starting to jump him, and I think it's a natural thing, but it feels a little early in his career. I mean, Cook's still a fairly young back in the league, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely concerning.
Yeah, there's a lot of concerns right now. A lot more than positives after this game. And to me too, another concern that I have is Adam Thielen. He's had 2 receptions in the last 2 games for like 22 yards. And that's it. I mean, he's clearly not the Adam Thielen of the past. He may end up going into the Vikings Hall of Fame, sure, and it's hard to get rid of a guy like that. But if we're talking about moving on from Dalvin Cook, is Adam Thielen really a wide receiver too? Do we
Well,
need
I
to have
think
that conversation? Because KJ Osborne looks good too.
yeah, no, Thielen is a wide receiver too. Like there was a time where he was a wide receiver one,
He
and it was
was.
like that
Is he still?
was. No, absolutely not. Not with JJ on the team, and JJ's
Right.
clearly number one, and then there's a big gap between JJ and everyone else, and yeah, but like I would say that right now Kirk's favorite targets are JJ and Hawkinson, and Thielen was clearly like covered this entire game, so then he went to
Yeah.
like KJ Osborne, who is also pretty good. So I mean, there was times like like we all like Stephon Diggs is amazing, and when
Mhm.
like when Thielen and Diggs were playing together, like I feel like there was just so many games where Thielen had way bigger games, or at least was scoring more touchdowns, and like that obviously like probably led to why Diggs wanted to like leave anyway, but he wanted to be that clear number one guy. Um, but yeah, no, Thielen was good. I don't think it's tough, man. Everybody looks terrible compared to JJ. So
Well, right, but
and
even
Hawkinson.
if you look back in the last 5 years, there's been 7 games in the last 5 years, I believe it was. I was seeing the stat earlier where he's had over 70 yards. We're not talking 100 yards, 70 yards in the last 5 years that Thielen's had, and he's only had I think one time where he had over 100 yards. That's I don't know. I feel like he's going to cost so much money next year. To me, he's the guy that you move on. What do you think, Alex?
I could not agree more. When we're talking about cutting some salary and moving on from players, I think Thielen's the natural next up in that conversation. He's slated to make $11 million next year and $14 million the year after that. And yeah, I think you're totally right, Cole. I think he's also slipping into that wide receiver 3 tier. I mean, there's just so many great young receivers in the league right now that it's just hard to, keep up with them. And we have seen some stat regression over the past couple years. And, he's 32 going into his age 33 season next year. And I don't know. That's a lot of money to be paying a receiver that isn't making that big of a difference in the games. As a Vikings fan, I mean, I think I speak for all of us that we all have a special place in our heart for Adam Thielen, a Minnesota boy born and raised, like there is a special
Cole
place for
called him
that.
Mr. Minnesota.
He is.
Yeah,
He is.
right. Him and Joe Mauer, man, are Mr. Minnesota.
Yeah, and I would love to see him retire a Viking, but right now it doesn't make financial sense.
Yeah, unless maybe he's willing to like restructure and drop to be a wide receiver 3 or something, and just really be Mr. Minnesota. That'd be the way
Right.
to do it. But
I'm all for
I
that.
I can't blame the guy too if he wants to go somewhere else and still keep $11 million, because I would do the same thing. It'd be hard to restructure and be like, yeah, I'll take half of the salary what I could have had, when you're talking millions of dollars. That's tough. So we'll see what happens. But another guy that I think's on the chopping block too, not only right now, but just next season, Ed Donatel. We talked a little bit about the defense. Let's look at the stats a little further. They made Aaron Rodgers look good. He even had a rushing touchdown, which is just absolutely embarrassing. We keep saying that word. That's clearly the through line of this podcast is just embarrassment all around. But
well, I mean, Aaron
what do you
Rodgers
think's going on
did
with
have a
the
little. He had a little trickery there. He did like the fake pass,
If you're
pump
getting
fake.
faked out on a run by Aaron Rodgers,
You would have been like if
I
Aaron
would've
Rodgers looks
been,
like
but
he's gonna
I'm
throw
not
the
a
ball,
pro.
you're gonna jump up in the air.
I don't
Cole-
care. You go
Cole's
tackle
not
that
getting
guy.
paid millions to tackle Aaron
You
Rodgers.
go tackle that guy, and you let the person who's trying to defend in the end zone knock that pass out.
Okay, let's
Go get him.
actually. This is actually
pressure.
going to lead to a bigger conversation, which we don't have to get into right now. But the rules should definitely be
Let's do it.
changed a little bit, because I've seen now, like, people are afraid to hit a quarterback late, right? So they don't want to like hit a quarterback if he's, if there was no penalty for like a somewhat late hit right on a quarterback where they're like gonna throw the flag right away when you do it, then he probably would have tried to tackle him instead of jumping up in the air to like so far back,
Right.
pretending to like he was going to try to
Especially
stop the
Aaron
pass.
Rodgers, like and
But-
Tom Brady, guys
but-
like that.
Yeah, but they've also been. I mean, I've been seeing like people like running out of bounds and like the defense like letting up and being like, "Oh, you're running out of bounds," and then they cut in and like get like 10 more yards, and it's like, all right, man. Like as soon as you make your way to the sideline, like you should not be able to decide you're going to cut back in if you like, because I don't know. I feel like quarterbacks are taking advantage of that.
Did you see the play by Nick Foles this week?
What, when he got hurt, or
No, so he was in the
I saw him get laid out and like lay on the ground forever, but yeah.
No, he was throwing the ball and the defender was coming in to sack him and he was in his motion and the defender like got up to him and like kind of hugged him and then like stopped and looked around and then Foles just threw the ball and they never blew the whistle dead. He was just didn't want to hit him like after he threw the ball and thought like it was over. And it's like kind of what you're talking about. It's
Right, as
changing
soon
the
as he's
way
wrapped up. Is what you're
Right.
saying? Yeah.
and it's changing the way defensive players are going about it and like it's totally affecting the game in huge ways, I feel like.
Anything else with the Vikings defense? When you look at the actual numbers, like Josh said, it doesn't look like they did that bad. But anybody who watched that full game knows that the defense did very poorly, and it's a consistent pattern. It doesn't matter. I know it was 315 yards. It wasn't the 400 we've been seeing a lot of weeks, but it sure felt like 400. And I think if it was a closer game, there's no doubt they would have put up 400 on us. I think they were more just trying to run the clock out, take as many plays as they could, not just, do whatever they could to run that clock down. Do you think Ed Donatel is going to go next year?
I don't. It's weird too, because like watching the game, I heard they were like saying how like good of a defensive coordinator he was and stuff, and I was like, I mean, maybe like in theory, like on paper, but actually
On
not
paper,
even.
he's
on paper.
not this
I was
year.
not even on paper. Yeah. There's some quality that they see. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, watching the game, they just did whatever they wanted. They just rushed the ball all over. Like they had 163 yards rushing. Like they, they were just really efficient on offense. And I don't know. Yeah, I guess I can't like put my finger on one thing because they were just so bad at everything. Like
Alex, do you have anything to add?
it was a
on
really
Ed
bad game
Donatel's
for the
future
defense
with the Vikings after a game like this at Lambeau Field, embarrassing the state of Minnesota in a way?
Yeah,
Wow.
It
I
was.
mean,
It was embarrassing.
there's no doubt about that. He has been taking a lot of heat this season for the defense, and I think there definitely is, blame to be put on him. But at the end of the day, the players still have to make plays, and
Right.
so how much is it on the coordinator? How much of it is on the player? And I think as just general football fans, that's so hard to decipher just by watching the games. There's so much more that goes into it. So I don't know. Who knows what the right play is? Maybe it's we need different types of players in our defense. Maybe it's a new scheme. There's a million different things it could be. But right now, yeah, Donatel seems like public enemy number one.
Yeah, but like you said, players need to make plays, and like a lot of the that Robert Tonyan touchdown, like that was just like a blown coverage. He was just wide open. He was so wide open, no one was even near him. It's just they're not doing their job.
Yeah, and I mean we've talked enough about this game. I'm tired of talking about it. I feel like they're saying
let's dissect it more.
I think over at the Vikings locker room, over at the training center, Vikings Lakes, they're saying, you know what? Let's talk about it for a minute, and we'll move on tomorrow. And they're looking at the Bears, but I think they're kind of moving on past the Bears and looking obviously beyond that. We'll see what happens in the Bears game. Alex hinted earlier, KOC's saying that the starters are going to play. We'll see what actually happens, and we'll get into that a lot in our next podcast. But let me just throw two things your way really quick to end this. I'm gonna kind of call this. I was going to call it like Cole's obscure takes, but then I saw like my last name's kind of in there. So I'm going to call it OB's obscure takes. Get a little creative in here. Every once in a while I throw you guys something and you guys shut it down pretty quick because it's pretty wild and conspiracy-like. But hear
Are
me
you
out,
about to
all
say
right?
that the Vikings are not
Hear
going to
me
win
out.
another game this season?
No, that would just be sad. But no, I'm just. What if? What if? All right, football is clearly, I like a lot of sports, but football especially is a game of watching film. When they practice on the field is important, but watching film is even more important. So we keep seeing these blowouts. When we lose so big, and it's just it gets bad in the beginning, and then we just let it get worse and worse and worse, and let it continue to be an absolute blowout. Maybe KOC doesn't care. I'm not saying they're losing on purpose, but I'm saying, what if once they're down by like 2 touchdowns and they're just the momentum's not going well, and you know what, the game, one loss is one loss. It's better than like throwing every dart you have and losing the game. Maybe KOC is like, hey, you know what? We've lost. Let's not bring out all these trickery, all this finesse. Let's try to just get through this game. And if we lose by 40, it's still just one loss. Who cares? Is there any kind of obscure take in that?
I don't agree with you at all.
No?
No, I don't think you're down by 2 scores. That's nothing. I mean, there's no way like
Okay. 3 scores. I mean, we're losing by 4 or 5 scores. So is there a point in the game that you decide to not just bring out your backup players, but you're just saying, like, let's just not give the other teams any more film. Let's just shut down, let's just play the same game we've been playing the whole time, even though it's not winning football.
I think there's a little truth to that, when you're down and out, like out of the game, yeah, you're obviously not going to be pulling out all your back pocket plays, your 100%ers or whatever it may be.
Right.
But I know in the NFL, like, people always talk about, oh, they should try to lose this game so they have better pick, or whatever it may be. But like, that's not how these guys are wired. They're going out there and they're giving everything because it's their job. They're getting paid to do it. Like, so I find it hard to believe that like they would just throw away a game, especially with a 1 seed potentially on the line.
Yeah, and that's where, like, as soon as they got down by that much, I don't know. Again, this is an obscure take. It's an absolute hot take, some people call it, but I'm just thinking KOC is smart. I'm not saying the players are doing anything to throw the game in any way, but at some point, if KOC is, trying to run the ball when he should be throwing the ball, or, things like that, I don't know. It's an obscure take I'm throwing out there. And I got one more for you to end the podcast, because I just watched the Green Bay Packers literally lift up a guy on our team and slam him to the ground. I watched the gritty happen in JJ's face. I watched all the players surround JJ when he ended up in the sidelines, and Alexander trying to get in his face. You know what? Do the Vikings need to just take something out of the NHL playbook, something out of the Wild playbook from this year, and go get themselves a guy like Ryan Reeves? Go get, not sign somebody, but just tell someone on the team to be that guy. Have
like an enforcer?
Be an enforcer. Exactly. That's
well,
this obscure take. Do we need
I don't
an
know.
Enforcer? Are we
I don't really know how it works in the NHL, but I know in the NFL you definitely get some pretty hefty fines for doing stuff like that. So
yeah, you see Ryan Reeves going out there in the NHL. You see these enforcers laying these absolute hits. They don't have to just drop the gloves to be an enforcer. You just know that guy.
But Cole, like, everybody on the Vikings is bigger than him, and they're already enforcers. Like, they're football players.
I don't know. They just need to be more chippy. That's my take on that. They need to be more physical. With the Bears coming up, we'll dive into that in our next podcast. We'll talk about it. Is there anything else you guys want to add to just sulk on this loss a little bit longer, and then we will stop talking about it?
I will say, yeah, I would just say the one thing is, like, I saw a couple like cutaways of JJ on the sideline, and it was really sad to see, right? It's like seeing like a superhero who's like helpless, You're just like, man, what? I just want to give you a hug. But
what about when he almost hit the ref? Oh my god.
Well, yeah.
Oh, he did hit the ref.
Yeah, he like punched the ref.
So bad. Could you imagine if he actually slammed his helmet and like knocked that ref out cold? Or
that was when he slipped and they threw an interception, but I don't know.
It was clearly like not intentional, because as you like pull your helmet off, you can't see as well. So he's pulling it off and he's probably like this, slamming it down.
No, he wasn't like intentional. He was just going to slam his helmet. The ref just happened to be there. But
well, yeah, and he was like turning while he was doing it too, and it just happened to be like right there.
Yeah, thankfully we did not knock the ref out, but if anything, he should have done that and just thrown it at Alexander. I'm just kidding. That would have been a bad look. Don't do that. But anyway, All right, we will we'll dive into the Bears game. We'll dive into what we got seating wise coming up. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Comment below if you have any questions or anything you want us to answer. Thanks as always, and Skol Vikings.